when you were a baby, you came into this world without the ability to do things for yourself very much. You know, you were doing good just to find your hand and try to coordinate your hand to where it needs to go. And then as we moved to childhood, we had these big teachers and big parents and big people who told us what to do, and sometimes we didn't please them, and sometimes it didn't go well at all, and we wondered how to fit in, and we thought, oh, maybe it'll be better when I become a teenager. And then we become a teenager. And, you know, for some of us, this came well before teenage. But in teenage, often hormones and things are rushing into our bodies, and we're trying to figure out our sexuality, and we're trying to sort out. Now for me, that started much earlier, actually, but that's another story. But we've tried to find our place in the world, and all this time we're being programmed into what is it that I can be? We're told so many things that we can't be. We are told so many dreams are impossible for us. Again, I can remember in high school when a teacher asked me what I was going to do after high school. And I said, well, I want to go to college. You can't go to college. What was it in your life that taught you that there was limitation? What was it in your life that taught you that somehow you could not really unfold your life and unfold those dreams? What dreams did you have that someone tried to smash on? What parade did you want to have in your life that someone wanted to rain on? What was it in your life that you dreamed of being? Maybe it was to be the President of the United States. Maybe it was to be a professor. Maybe it was to be an opera singer. I mean, Nicola is such a great example. Like, okay, at 21, you know, she's like this amazing star mezzo-soprano and a biker and an aerial artist and a teacher of all kinds of music, and obviously feeling the freedom to explore her boundaries. What held you back? What was the limitation? I want to talk about this story from John chapter 5, the Gospel of John. John is one of the 4 Gospels in the Christian scriptures that we have in the Bible. John was probably written somewhere between 90 and 100 CE, that is Common Era. And there's a story in chapter 5. There was a man who for 38 years laid by this pool called Bethesda. He laid by this pool along with a lot of other people who could not walk or who were blind or who had some sort of infirmity, because the story went that an angel of the Lord would come down into the water and would stir the water around, and the first person that could get into the water after the angel had stirred it up could be healed. And so Jesus walks up and he sees this man and recognizes that he's been there a long, long time. And he asks him this question, which is a question for all of us. Remember, things that are in Scripture are not just about that man who lived 2,000 years ago. It's about the evolution of our consciousness. Each aspect in Scripture is talking about some aspect of our consciousness evolving. So Jesus asked the man this question: will you be made whole? Now, as a kid, hearing that verse, I thought, what kind of question is that? Will you be made whole? Why not say, do you wish to be? Do you want to be? And in many translations, that's how it's translated. I like to study from the Greek New Testament, and the word that is used there, the first and primary meaning of it is will you. Do you set an intention to? Is it your choice to? So Jesus was saying, what is your intention? What do you choose? As a kid, I thought, what? Are you saying he chose that? But this man was tied to the pool. He was tied in limited understanding as to how he could experience healing and wholeness. He thought he had to jump into the pool. He was willing to wait 38 years based on this limited story. What story are you attached to? What story of limitation are you attached to? And how long have you held on to it? I mean, some of you, maybe it goes further than 38 years. So Jesus wanted to turn it around on him and get him to engage and see that his source was not just this little pool of Bethesda waiting for some celestial being to come down and splash in the water, but that his source was much, much, much bigger than that. So Jesus asked, will you be made whole? Do you choose it? Is it your intention? In our Absolute Abundance class, we're learning about the power of intention and setting our intention. Because where our attention and intention goes, the energy of spirit and the universe flows. So where you are placing your intention, your attention, is where the power and presence of spirit is going. It's up to you. Jesus said, be it done to you according to your belief. So, wow, what a big question. Will you be made whole? And again, he didn't say, do you wish to be? Do you want to be? Have you thought about it? Will you be made whole? And that Greek word for whole, again, it's a very secondary meaning, to be healed. But to be whole is the primary meaning of that word. To be whole, to really live a life of abundance, to really live your life full out. What would your life be like if you lived it fully and freely? If you could do anything, what would you do? What would you try for? That's living into wholeness. So will you be made whole? And so now I'm asking you, will you be made whole?
Yes.
It wasn't a rhetorical question. Will you be made whole? Yes. Okay, there's a number of you who are willing to be. Now, why would someone not want to be? Well, sometimes we get so attached to that story of limitation. Do I really want to tell you how long I've been in ministry? I wondered that. I debated that this morning. And I thought, why not? It's just a number. Anyway, so 42 years ago, I went into full-time ministry, and in that tradition, you had to be a pastor for at least 2 years before you were a candidate for ordination. So this year marks my 40th year of being ordained. And so that's just to say I've been around the block a few times. And I've had a number of people who've come to me for counseling who didn't like their life, who didn't like what was showing up in their life. They didn't like how things were happening in their life. And they came to me wanting desperately a better life, wanting a life that was free, a life where they could really express themselves, a life where they could really experience abundance. And a number of those people, even though they wanted different results, did not want to do anything different to get there. So they came to me wanting a new life, but didn't want to change anything because they were attached to their story and attached, like that man for 38 years was attached to the idea that he had to get into the pool if he was going to be healed. No other way. And I believe Jesus is asking or saying, hey, your source is much, much more than this. Your source is bigger than any story that you have told. And so, what is it for you? Do you wish to hang on to the story? In recovery, we hear about the definition of insanity. That insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. How's that working for you? It doesn't work so well. Have you ever watched a bad movie? Have some of you? Have some of you gone to the expense of going to a theater and buying a ticket to go to a movie and getting the popcorn and getting the drink or whatever it is that you get, and you're in about 20 minutes into the movie and you're thinking, why am I in this movie? You've put money into it, maybe you have your spouse or a date or who knows who, and you're wondering, what is keeping me in this movie? Many people will stay in the bad movie because after all, they've invested in it. They've put money into it. You don't. You get out. Good for you. But many people are like, no, I mean, I'm here, don't want to move the popcorn, don't want to get up in front of everybody. Okay, we're here. Unfortunately, a lot of people do that with the story of their lives. They find themselves in a bad movie. But they won't get up out of their seat and go to a different movie or create a new story for themselves to break out of that limitation. Are you staying in the bad movie? Do you think you get extra credit for that? Do you think angels and saints will glorify you for staying in the bad movie? Now, let's imagine, you remember like someone winning a lottery that was worth $1.6 billion? That's like, wow, I just tried to picture winning $1.6 billion. And so imagine you've just won $1.6 billion. Let's just stretch your mind a little. Stretch it beyond the limitations. You're driving down 101, the highway here that connects us with San Francisco, and you're a little preoccupied just trying to take it in. You've just won $1.6 billion. Now, I know some of you might already go to the negative. Well, how much do I have to pay in taxes? Don't go there. Just stay with the 1.6 billion to start with, okay? Don't start the negative talking and story making around it. So, you're a little distracted as you're trying to take it in. 1.6 billion. I'm a billionaire. What do I do with that? And while you're distracted, driving down 101, maybe you get into someone else's lane a little bit, and they honk at you and give you the finger. Is it going to upset you? You just won $1.6 billion. Do you think you care about someone giving you the finger? I don't think so. I think you'll be just fine with it. You'll probably just wave and smile. Because you're thinking, I don't care what you do with your finger, I just got $1.6 billion. Do you realize that God, Spirit, the divine, absolute source, the universe, That 1.6 billion is infinitesimal compared to absolute abundance, compared to our absolute source. Do you realize that? Do you realize that absolute source is living as you? Do you realize that you are never separate from that source except by your consciousness? So why would we get disturbed about some little thing that happens, or some change in our job, or something goes wonky in our lives, if we know that we are absolutely tied with absolute abundance? It occurs to me, and there may be other options, but at least two options. Either you think your source is limited, or you think your access to your source is limited. Jesus, in talking with this man who had laid there for 38 years, was pointing out, you've never been separate from your good. Your good is here right now. And he said to the man, rise up, pick up your bed, and walk. And at that moment, the man was made whole, and he picked up his bed. And I don't think he was just walking. He was probably running. And I imagine the other people around the pool were like, well, who does he think he is? We're supposed to lay here and be lame and blind. Now this guy's getting up. He's messing with the whole program. And when you step into abundance, sometimes people will ask you, who do you think you are? Occasionally people have asked me, who do you think you are? And I will say something like, I am the expression of the eternal I am, here to live love, life, abundance, and it cannot be stopped. And they go, huh. If you know your connection with absolute source, if you know that oneness with the presence of God, as Jesus said, the Father and I are one, if you know that you can never be separate from your absolute good, from absolute abundance, from this absolute source of wholeness and health and peace and blessing and creativity, like we saw in the talent show. If you know that, and you know that you're connected, what could ever be against you? Why would you get upset about someone giving you the finger? Because you have more than $1.6 billion. Let that soak in. Let that just kind of percolate in you. You have more than 1.6 because you have infinite substance, absolute abundance, the divine living in, through, and as you. As Paul said in Acts chapter 17, in God we live, move, and have our being. You are the expression of that oneness, that abundance. What is there to be afraid of? Heck, I don't think there is anything. We can be in connection with that presence of abundance at all times. So, here's my question again for you. Will you be made whole? Yes. Good. Into that yes, Spirit is moving. Into that yes, the universe is responding and backing you up. Into that yes, there is something spiritual, creative, that can never be defeated, that is working in, through, and as you, that cannot be defeated. Into that yes, you break free of your limitations as you realize that in that absolute presence of God there is no limitation, thank you very much, and you move forward in the power and presence of Spirit. Thank you. So let's cement that in with some affirmations. If you would repeat after me. Where I am, the presence of God is. What I am is the presence of God. Where I go is the presence of God. You You can't hold me back. You can't rain on my parade. I am the presence of God in action. And so it is.